Put on your helmets and buckle your chin straps for the wildest podcast held in the Steel City. Dubs and Chicken Hawk will give you a taste of the past in fried jumbo.
All right. Hello, everybody. We are here with a great guest, Mr. Don Gambridge from my town. Down in Baldwin, South Hills, Pennsylvania. We used to call him Hedley Lamarr at State Farm, but no.
You wonder why?
No. Well, aren't you 6'8", or what is your height?
When I was in college, in my bare feet, I was 6'8". They measured me my freshman year. But now, in the twilight of a very mediocre career,
You're crazy.
I'm absolutely just a hair under 6'7". So
6'7". You shrunk a little bit.
I did. The spine compresses.
Yeah.
And I have an older, bigger, ugly, slower, dumber brother who's 6'10" and a half, and he used to beat on me, so that's why I've shrunk a little bit.
So his name's Dave, right?
It is Dave. Yeah.
So did they call you D&D down there in Baldwin, or what did they,
Well,
how did that all shake out?
Well, so here's the story. So back when my brother was in junior high, and he was going through a gigantic growth spurt at that time.
Yeah.
He actually grew 9 inches in 1 year. He had Osgood slaughter in his knees, where the bone decays under your kneecap. But anyhow, so our last name is Gambridge, and so he had a teacher that used to call him Gumbridge, and then he goes,
Gumbridge.
You remind me of that big stretchy green character. What was that guy's name? Gumby.
Gumby,
right?
yeah.
So that name stuck with my brother. So he was Gumby, right? And so then I came along and a little bit shorter. So some people go with Big Gumby and Little Gumby.
There you go.
Right? But my brother was playing baseball in high school, and he had a third baseman. And so I'm sitting up on the hill at the game talking trash on the players, and he goes, "Hey, Chicken Gumbo." So some guys have called me Chicken.
Chicken.
As my brother calls me, he'll call me Chicken. And I got some friends that call me that just because my brother called that to me. I'm looking at your sign here, fried jumbo.
Mm-hmm.
And
I got to talk to you about that before you go.
Did you happen to see on the news last night? They said Isley's they're opening a retro Isley store in the Strip District. Yeah.
They're going to be having fried jumbo down there.
They're going to have chip chop ham.
Chip chop ham.
Chipped ham in that.
Yeah, we talk
skyscraper cones.
The people that we have on here, we always ask them, did you ever eat a fried jumbo sandwich? So I have to ask you that by law as part of the show.
Law.
Yeah, did you ever have
my signed agreement?
Yeah, did you? What's your experience been with fried jumbo? You ever have any?
I had jumbo, but I had never had it fried before.
Right.
So back in the day when I started out in the insurance business, I started with a couple guys recruited me. I went to a traveler's agency up in Tarentum, Pennsylvania.
Very nice.
It was called Loynd and Lindquist, and it was right across from. There's a train station right in Tarentum.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're at. Yep.
And at the train station, on the menu, they had fried jumbo.
Fried jumbo. That's what that place was called, the train station, too. Like it was a restaurant.
Who's the Italian? They make the Italian.
Mancini.
Not Saloni's, but
Mancini's or no?
Mancini's.
Yeah.
Mancini's Italian bread.
Oh, it's
and
the
they
best.
had fried jumbo with some cheese on it.
Can't beat it.
That was my first real fried jumbo, and that was the bomb.
Yeah, when we were little, that's what our parents, you either went to someone's house during playing basketball or football or something, and, like one of the moms would cook something or something, and it would be either fried jumbo or chip chopped ham with the ham barbecue thing. You know what I'm saying? They would mix it
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My dad, God rest his soul, he used to, especially in the summer, out on the grill, he would make like a tinfoil tray. All right. And he'd go to Isley's and he'd get the chipped ham. All right. And then he would start and cook it on the grill slow.
Yeah.
And then put a little water in it. And then he'd start and drizzle the barbecue sauce over it. And then he'd heat the buns. We'd have ham barbecues on the grill with some baked beans. Man, was that good.
I want to ask you a lot of questions about Duquesne and recruiting and all that because I find that interesting, especially with NIL and things now. It's such a different
We better block out about 3 hours for just NIL and the transfer portal, right?
It's just insane.
It is insane.
Yeah, but we'll get there eventually. I'll talk about that a little bit because like you and I were having lunch before this and we were trying to get our arms around that. It just seems to me without some kind of cap, I don't know where that thing's going to go.
Not only is there no cap, there's no rules.
Right.
As I think I mentioned to you before, so with free agency in professional sports, guys are always trying to get a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract. Well, in college, nobody wants multi-years. They want 1 year. I want to come here, then I want to go somewhere else and see if I can get more there. Then I want to go somewhere else and get more there.
Yeah, make $2 million here, then maybe someone will pay me $3 million next year.
And so as a perfect example, so Penn State, all right, I just was reading something here a couple of months ago. Penn State is doing a big renovation of their stadium.
The Bryce Jordan
multi-billion-dollar renovation, right?
Wow.
And they're asking the alum and more importantly, their season ticket holders to contribute to that. Well, they also have to pay a seat license, right?
Right.
Then they have to pay for season tickets, right? Then, of course, you got to give to the Nittany Lion Club or whatever, the Alumni Association. And now they're asking for NIL money as well.
From regular people.
Regular people, they're season ticket holders. So you're asking for the stadium, you're asking for your tickets and your seat license, you're asking for the players. Where does it start? And you just characterized it beautifully. Regular people. Yeah. Where does it stop? Yeah. Just to go see sports. And so then, which begs the question, so, all right, so I'm on the hook. I'm Penn State blue, right? I'm not particularly,
right,
but I'm just using that as an example. And so you give all this money and you go, you make the trek to Penn State to watch the games and you're all in there. Well, so you're playing this year, all right, and you decide to leave and go get money somewhere else. And so somebody comes in to take your place. And then the following year, so in a 5-year period, I've seen the team turn over five different times. Where is the connection is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the money aside, you as a fan, as an alum, where is the connection? Because you don't know the players.
From year to year.
Right. Exactly.
And then you're paying this money to go into this fund that might get that young man for a year. And then you paid all that money. Then that money's going, it's out the door already.
And you never even really got to know that.
See him develop.
Typically, in the course of a 3 or 4 year career for an athlete there, you would get to know those guys a little bit, have some sort of connection.
And there's a developmental process. Their kids can get better.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some of it, I don't know.
And then on top of it, and we were talking about this earlier as well, these mega conferences, all right, so the Big Ten now, think about it, it stretches from New Jersey, where Rutgers is located, to Los Angeles, where Southern Cal and UCLA are.
Yeah, they're coming all the way across country to play football.
And so in the course of, it's not just, football plays once a week. Basketball they play about 32 to 35 games, all right?
They're playing 2 or 3 games a week.
Travel.
Yeah.
But forget those two for a second. It's still the baseball team, the wrestling team, the volleyball team. A lot of the minor sports, they have to do that same travel. They have to be in, somewhere in the middle of the country or maybe on the West Coast. I mean, Stanford is in the ACC. California is in the ACC. It's absolutely nuts to travel that you're – and wait, they're a student athlete and you expect them to study, but they got to travel, practice, and work just like a professional athlete? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's out.
And what brought it up for us was the big announcement last night with St. Francis saying they're dropping out of Division 1A football or sports, and they're going Division 3 because they can't compete in that space anymore.
Absolutely.
And Boomer Esiason was on TV or the radio this morning saying it's just going to be the beginning.
It is the beginning
of much more of this to come.
Well, and it breaks my heart. I mean, Duquesne. So I was fortunate with my group, and that was 1977. We went to the NCAA tournament, which back then too was 32 teams. There was no 3-point line. You weren't allowed to dunk until my senior year.
Yeah.
Of course, we had the short shorts and the high socks that nobody needed to see, but it was a different game. So then it took Duquesne 47 years to make it to the tournament again, which they did very successfully last year, and that was a great story. But now here they are this year. All right, they missed the tournament, but you wake up yesterday and you see that 3 guys have already from the team or have hit the transfer portal, and it's changing. And Duquesne doesn't have the resources for NIL money or some of the other things that you need to offer to compete with all these other schools. I mean, you can honestly make, a lot of my friends won't like to hear this, but I'm not sure that Pitt can compete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see
football and basketball.
I don't see how you compete with the SEC and the Big Ten.
To that point, I got a really good friend. He's a big alum at West Virginia. He was a wrestler, and they're in the Big 12, right? And they just lost their basketball coach, who they had less than a year.
Yeah, the guy from
he came from Drake.
Drake,
and he just went to Indiana. And my buddy said, "We can't compete. We've got good resources, but we can't compete with You can't compete with the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah.
They're the kings."
Yeah, you're not. There's going to be basically like minor league baseball. You're going to have like A level, double A level, triple A level within Division I sports. You're going to have the haves and the have-nots, and there's probably going to be at least 3 or 4 levels of that.
Yeah,
because Duquesne could never. Robert Morris. I mean, these great stories that you used to hear about these upsets in the NCAA tournament, everything that made March Madness exciting, is going to probably disappear quite a bit because all of those players are going to be poached before they become seniors for those mid-majors and small schools, and they're going to be poached, and they're never going to be able to compete. They might win their conference, but by the time they get into that first game, and you saw it a little bit this year, there weren't really any upsets. Some of those teams were beaten by 20 points.
And that's what's been the beauty of March Madness.
Yeah,
right?
The upset.
Upset. I remember 25 years ago, Bryce Drew hitting a shot. I was out on a Thursday with my buddies watching the game. Bryce Drew hits a shot at the end of the game. He was playing for his dad at Valparaiso. And then he slid across the floor on his stomach. And that was like a signature play for March Madness. Yeah. And they used to show that over and over. And to your point, you just didn't see much of that at all this year. You saw the one with Maryland, but of course they're a big school, and they were able to hold off Colorado State. But you didn't see many of those plays. That's for sure.
No. So we're going to come back to college sports because I want to kind of take you back in time to when you were a kid. And how you
Wayback Machine.
Yeah, we're going to go way back in Baldwin and talk about, what are some of the lessons you learned as a kid that you were able to take into high school and into college? Because, it's not easy to play Division I sports, and you made it to Duquesne. And then once you got to Duquesne, you had a heck of a great career. The way I met you was at State Farm. You were probably, I don't know, with us at that point. You were just coming off of Phoenix for many years. And then you went to State Farm. And then we both kind of went our separate ways. But I always respected the fact that, you had a Pittsburgh upbringing and a connection to your neighborhood, still even as an adult, which I think a lot of us in Western Pennsylvania are proud of where we grew up. So take me back. Your brother's 4 years older than you.
Right.
What did you do? What was the average day for you as a kid in your neighborhood? And where did you live in Baldwin? Were you off of like 51?
Actually, we lived the school district is now referred to as Baldwin Whitehall.
Oh, Baldwin Whitehall.
And actually, we lived in Whitehall.
Whitehall.
Right? And I was so blessed that besides having the greatest parents in the world, grew up on a dead-end street.
Those are the best.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Those are the best. And what even made it greater is in our one dead-end block, there was 40 kids.
It's crazy.
40 kids. So my mother would say, when in the summer or on the weekend, she would say, go play in traffic.
Yeah, get out.
Yeah, because there's nobody driving up and down the street, really, for the most part, and there's just kids out there.
Yeah.
And we literally, we would play from morning till when you rolled out of bed till they were calling you. It was dark out. You're chasing lightning bugs in the summer, and you got games going on. We had a spotlight on our driveway where we had a hoop up against the house. And my dad, he'd try to go to bed to go to work the next day. And finally, he would turn the light out. He goes, that's it. I'm done with that ball bouncing up against my bedroom.
That was the signal.
That was the signal.
The light went off.
Yeah. And I had a buddy that I grew up with, and he lived 2 blocks down. And he was at our house all the time. He was like my third brother, my buddy Marty. And he was old, shorter growing up. But then now he's like 6'7", 350.
Oh, really?
He turned into a beast.
What's going on down on that dead end street? There's 3 dudes over 6'7".
Well,
My brother and I were talking about that the other day. Remember when we were young, there were a lot of dudes in Pittsburgh that were 6'5", say almost all the way to almost 7 foot, 6'10", like your brother, maybe was the tallest. But there was a lot of people 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". You don't see that as much anymore, or at least they're not playing basketball.
Well, and to your point, all right, besides playing basketball, I refereed high school and college basketball for 36 years.
And you did that for who? Like IUP and all them, or?
Pardon me?
Were you doing college IUP?
Yeah, I worked in the PSAC for 31 years.
Wow.
With IUP, California, Slippery Rock, those schools. I also worked down in they used to call it the WVIAC. I worked there for about 6 years, and then the travel got to be too much there. And I worked over in Ohio with some Division III schools and also some pretty much any school around Pennsylvania I've been to referee. And then I always did the high school as well. So,
right.
But my point in bringing that up is, so you don't see near the size anymore, nor do you see the athletic scholarships going to kids from the WPIL.
Right.
And it's funny, I ran into a guy, so I was getting some flooring and carpet for my house, and a guy that I've known a long time, and he's a former Duquesne guy as well. So he came out to the house to, show me some stuff and do some measurements, and he and I are talking, and I said to him, Dave, how old are you exactly? And it turns out he's 1 year older than I am. And he went to Upper St. Clair. So we're talking, and we played against each other in high school. Now, we knew each other for years, but we didn't realize we played each other in high school. And we both looked at each other and went, the 5 overtime game. And Baldwin and Upper St. Clair, back then we played in a 5 overtime game.
Oh, my gosh.
And we were both in the game. And I didn't finish it. I fouled out in the second overtime. He made it all the way to the end, and they beat us. And so we were just talking about different players. And so it got us both to like pulling out some old memorabilia stuff. And in our section, we were in section 11. Back then, there was only Class A and Class B. Okay. And then there was some Class C as well. And then they had the city and Catholic leagues as well. And in Class A, I was reading the scouting report for my senior year, and it said that we had the tallest section in the WPIL. There was 6 guys from that section that got Division I scholarships.
Wow!
And the size was off the charts. I mean, I'm looking. Well, I remember playing. I played against Joe Montana in high school. He was 6 foot.
Yeah, he's a little guy.
In his junior year. I mean, and they were a terrific team.
Monongahela, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it called?
It was a merger.
Ringgold.
It became Ringgold, yeah. It was Monongahela, and I'm going brain dead now. I just saw it, too. Monongahela.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I do remember they became Ringgold, right? And they had the Rams.
And the other one that they played in the WPL championship, they played against General Braddock that year, and that was a merger of Rankin, Braddock, and North Braddock.
Okay.
So, but it gets back to
and now that's
the
Woodland
industry,
Hills.
the steel industry. There was just everywhere was so populated. There were so many people, and I think that's what lended itself to, there was more families, bigger people,
Yeah.
I mean, my high school, my senior year, my class had 976 kids.
Wow.
And
you graduated 976.
976 in 3 grades at Baldwin. We had over 2,700 kids. And
That's crazy.
the 2 or 3 classes after me all had over 1,000 kids.
Wow. They're probably, I bet you Baldwin's down to 500 or 400 or something.
Oh, they're down to like 400 now in the senior class. Correct.
That's crazy.
You are correct. And again, because
not as many kids.
I also remember when Pittsburgh used to be the 3rd largest world headquarters.
I remember that.
I mean, everybody, Alcoa, Gulf Oil, obviously U.S. Steel, all those. There was multiple steel companies that had their headquarters in Pittsburgh, which the family, when you have jobs, the families, the people will follow, right?
Right. And then we had that massive, that's kind of what sort of started this thing. When Todd and I were kids, that was when that mass exodus started to happen, where all the steel mills started to go out of town or go over to China, or they left Pittsburgh.
They brought the Asian leadership from industry in to show them the U.S. industry
model
manufacturing of steel, particularly.
Yeah,
and they went and did it, non-union and a lot cheaper, and that was the end of that story. You're right.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about, there's this box here, that we all, because our dads worked for the mills and stuff. We had this welfare cheese we would get, all the time, because, unemployment became, 20% in Pittsburgh, 25%.
Absolutely.
Pittsburgh, Johnstown. So you were in high school and all that when the mills were still kicking, but I'm behind you maybe 10 years or so. In that 10-year period, it was just unbelievable, the fallout. How many people left here, went to Maryland, or people went to Georgia, D.C. They left here in droves. And our class size probably, I think the biggest Norman ever had was 700 or 800, and by the time I came through, it was more like 500. Okay, and then now it's probably 300 or 400. Even though there's way more houses out here now.
Right.
But there's just no kids coming through.
And quite honestly, that's a challenge for these school districts as well as municipalities. They need to have more mergers. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
For instance, so I told you I grew up in Whitehall, which is part of the Baldwin-Whitehall School District. But to get to the other side of Baldwin, you have to drive through Brentwood.
Yeah.
Brentwood, that's another school district
that's
altogether.
on its own, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, no one would ever think about merging those two. I mean, there just hasn't been hardly any, especially when you go out Washington County, I mean, you go out to Avella and Char Houston and some of those places out there. I mean, they're just tiny little school districts. And
they're graduating 30 kids.
I mean, there's a lot of territory, but it's getting so costly and it's
hard to
just
support.
Heartbreaking for everybody, I mean,
yeah.
But nobody wants to give up the traditions, the names, the legacies, all of that stuff.
All the sports history, like you said, all the connections to childhoods and things of that nature, So back to Baldwin. You're down there, you and your brothers, or your brother, Dave, you're playing.
He counted as 2 sometimes.
He's 2. Yeah. He's a big dude. I never met him, but I'd like to meet him. But anyhow, so you're playing on the streets. What kind of games did you play? Did you play regular things like baseball, stickball, football, basketball? Did you play kickball, all those kind of games? What kind of sports did you do at the dead end?
I don't know what kind of age demographic you have in this audience, but if they're old curmudgeons like me, then they will understand.
Yeah, our audience is 45 pretty much and up.
Okay.
And up.
Because we used to play things like pitcher's hand and pitcher's mound.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you played games because you only had
certain people.
3 people, 4 people, whatever it might be. You didn't have enough for every position.
Yeah.
If you hit it to right field, that
was an out.
It was either an out or a strike.
Yeah.
So we played those games. We played a lot of street football.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you had to have a stationary quarterback.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You had to count battleships to rush.
Right.
And
One battleship, two battleships, three.
exactly. Classic story.
We called it Mississippi. One Mississippi, two Mississippi.
Exactly. But so one time we're playing street football, and there might have been 5 of us playing, 2 on a side and one stationary quarterback,
one steady
on the dead
QB.
end street. And so we're down at the bottom, but it would go up a little bit towards the end of the street. But it's not like we didn't let the neighbors park their cars there, so we had to navigate around that. Yeah. So my brother throws a ball, as they would call it with Russell Wilson, a moon ball. He throws a moon ball. I'm looking back. I got it. I'm running. I ran right into a parked Volkswagen.
Oh, dear.
It hit me. I went down. My buddy you got it all right. You got it. I'm laying there. I had the biggest gash. My shin and the bumper collided.
Oh, yeah.
And back then, too, it wasn't those plastic collapsible bumpers.
It was like that pig iron.
Oh, yeah. But that's the kind of stuff you would have on the street. I mean, and it was, it was too funny.
Yeah, someone was getting cut or broken bone every day, like every other day. It seemed like, where's this so-and-so? Oh, yeah, they're getting stitches, or he's getting broken. He got a cast.
Right. And then I said, so we would play basketball at 2 places. We'd either play in my driveway, which there was a hoop up against the house, but you had walls. So, and we'd play, there was just 3 of us, my one buddy who got bigger, and then my brother and I. And you're banging each other. Well, another great time. So I grab a rebound, I'm under the hoop.
Yeah.
But that's where the overhang for the garage was. All right?
Oh, I see, yeah.
So I get the rebound, and I'm powering up through my brother. I got that power move going straight up.
I got to go push through this. Push through your brother.
And exactly.
Yeah.
I went up, and I hit that concrete block.
Oh, dear God.
And I went straight down. I was out. My mom's sitting up on the front porch. My brother and my buddy are laughing hysterically.
Yeah, howling.
And my mom, what happened? What happened? Your son knocked himself out. He's laying in the drain. Oh, my God.
Your son knocked himself out. Did you?
And that's.
Were you bleeding and all that, or no?
Oh, I just.
You just took a big goose egg.
Oh, I had a huge goose egg on my head.
Did you? You know.
Fortunately, I got some hair to cover all the lumps.
Yeah,
I've hit my head a few thousand times in my day.
I was going to say, you could have been maybe 6'9" then. You might have stumped yourself right then and there. Oh. You could have caught your brother and passed him.
Oh, but trust me, they loved every minute of it.
You compressed your vertebrae at least an inch.
Oh, I know. I mean, but that's that when you play those kind of things out.
Oh, yeah.
And then I remember another time we're playing down at an actual basketball court, asphalt court. Down there was an elementary school at the end of our street.
Oh, you got a perfect situation. You got a dead end at one end and an elementary school at the other end.
Oh, it was perfect. We had a baseball field there and a basketball field. And so my one buddy that would play with us, his dad had been a college basketball player at Penn State. His dad. That's why we always thought he would be big, because his dad was 6'7", okay?
Yeah.
And his dad worked in the mill. Well, so he would come down, and he was trying to toughen us up, all right, like when we were in high school and college. Well, he's playing basketball against us with his steel-toe boots on.
His work boots.
And
he's
again,
stepping on your feet.
He was a superintendent in the mill, and he kicked my brother one time with
the boots.
With the boots. The stuff that we did, it was like nuts.
Craziness.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So that was, and again, so you played football, in the fall.
Did you do two bounce in all those games, like horse and out and two bounce and tip in and all that? Remember all that?
All that murder ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 guys against one.
Yeah.
3 guys against one. Whatever it be.
Because I think that's what kids are sort of not getting a chance to do. that really helped you in organized sports later. Is that unorganized stuff that you did. All that, like you said, murder ball and just, all that physical violence that occurred on the street corners.
It was all about competition.
Yeah.
Right?
It was about...
And that, I thought about this later in life. I learned so many great principles and my foundation from sports that was transferable to the business world, about being a self-starter, about being prepared, about competition, all of that stuff. I mean,
grit.
Yeah, you know all about that. I mean, and that's what was so great about it. And you were out there all day long. I mean, you weren't coming in the house. There was no computer to sit in front. Hell, I remember when we got our first color television.
Right.
Color television, 1964. And the first, I'll never forget, it was a Saturday afternoon when my dad gets this color television delivered. All right. We're all excited.
Everybody's super psyched.
Exactly. and there's only 2 shows in color on TV at the time. The first one was on in the afternoon, on a Saturday afternoon, and it was called Gadabout Gaddis, the Flying Fisherman.
No, sir.
That was in color.
This is fantastic. I never heard this before.
Oh, yeah.
What was?
And then that night,
one more time on that.
Gadabout Gaddis. I'm pretty certain that's it. The Flying Fisherman.
Okay, so we go around just catching fish and
back
stuff?
then, if you remember, shortly thereafter, Kurt Gowdy was the host, American Sportsman.
Oh, I remember that.
Right?
No problem. Remember Kurt Gowdy, and then there was Grits Gresham and those guys that had sideburns and all that. They had those outdoor life type channel.
And then the other show that was on in color, of course, my parents loved that, was Lawrence Welk.
Lawrence Welk. I remember that. I remember being at my grandparents all the time, and after dinner on Sunday nights, that's what we did, was Lawrence Welk.
Right.
Your parents loved that stuff. Or my grandma and grandpa, my mom and dad, they loved I remember, I can't wait for this Lawrence Welk to end. Because then you got Gunsmoke or something.
And you just made me think about something else too. So if we'd go to my grandparents or we'd go to my aunt and uncles, for dinner on a Sunday or something like that, you had to sit at the table until the adults were done. You had to sit there. There was no iPad watching stuff. There was no TV. You weren't watching TV like, I'm going to eat in the other room and watch the game. That wasn't happening.
No, it was serious business.
And so, again, you learned things by whether you thought you were listening or not. You absorbed stuff, and that kind of formed your opinions and, the way
you were definitely meant to be seen and not heard.
You
know what I mean, at the table, especially.
I was told that a few times.
Yeah, especially at the Sunday dinner or whatever. You get with that grandparent generation. It was no games at dinner. It was all business.
I remember being out on we had a patio out in the back of the house. I grew up at a small ranch house, so we had a brick wall and a patio. So when you were by yourself, you'd throw the ball against the wall, and you played a game. You had your glove and your ball, and you just threw it against the wall, and you had to make the outs, and you'd create a game, 9-inning game, and that's all the stuff you did when you didn't have anybody, to play with. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if you were at your grandparents and they didn't have that stuff, you were using plastic fruit or something I remember my grandma had like a plastic fruit set, I don't know why they had it.
Oh, yeah.
Table set.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there would be a pear and there would be an orange and an apple, and it was all plastic. And when they weren't looking or something, you'd grab that orange or something and you'd take it outside and you'd play
which leads us to what was the greatest sport you played when you were young?
I don't know. There was
I'll
a
give
lot
it to
of
you.
Yeah.
Wiffle ball.
I was going to say for us, it was probably wiffle ball or stick ball, because we then, after wiffle ball once we beat the wiffle ball to death and couldn't have one because you broke it into pieces, we started playing with a tennis ball.
Right.
Because it would last longer.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But I loved wiffle ball because you could carve the living shit out of that ball.
Oh. Which leads us to what was the greatest sport you played when you were young?
I don't know. There was
I'll
a
give
lot
it
of
to
them.
you.
Yeah.
Wiffle ball.
I was going to say for us, it was probably wiffle ball or stick ball, because we then, after wiffle ball once we beat the wiffle ball to death and couldn't have one because you broke it into pieces, we started playing with a tennis ball.
Right.
Because it would last longer.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But I loved wiffle ball because you could carve the living shit out of that ball.
Yeah. And what was the greatest is when you would if you went on vacation and you went to the beach, we used to, like when I was a kid, we used to go to Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
So we would play wiffle ball on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
So you got the wind, the water, and you're diving into the water to make the catch. I mean, it's tremendous.
Yeah, and those balls were breaking 4 feet at the beach. You could start it over, someone's backside. It would break in there.
Right.
That wind.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that wiffle ball was great. And then, of course, everybody wanted to be, you had to be Captain Willie, right? You had to you had the bat stuff.
Yeah.
I know there's something out on the X. There's a guy, because a buddy of mine will send me stuff every now and then. There's a guy that does all these different batting poses.
Oh, you got
a famous player, Pete Rose and Roberto Clemente and Willie Starr. So and right away as soon as he goes into the stance.
Yeah. Stargell was like,
remember?
He was a lefty. And
yeah. Oh, it was good. And
he was the greatest. He's my favorite.
I think there was another one that had a twitch, and he would twitch his
That was Hebner.
Yeah.
Richie Hebner, the hack.
Blood Whappers.
Yeah.
Blood Whappers. and wait, think about that.
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't make a lot of money in sports.
No.
So these guys worked in the off season. And what did Richie Hebner do?
I don't even know. What did he do?
He was a grave digger.
He was.
Yeah.
He dug graves.
His dad was like superintendent of a cemetery in Boston.
Yeah.
He was a grave digger in the off season.
Jeez.
Look it up. Don't doubt me.
I don't believe you.
I mean,
that dude could rake the ball.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a player.
Yeah. I remember there was back in the day, again, when I was growing up, the Steelers in the 60s were terrible. I mean, they were terrible.
Horrible. And it's just good that we got this, because I wanted to ask you about this, but go ahead.
As Charles Barkley would say, terrible. And the Steelers used to practice at South Park Fairgrounds.
No way.
Oh, yeah. They practiced at South Park Fairgrounds, and there was there used to be an apartment complex. It's still there, and it's called Prospect Park. Well, a lot of the players would live in Prospect Park because it was maybe 20 minutes over to South Park.
Okay.
They would change in the stables
for
practice.
Oh my.
And then after practice, they would all go. There was a bar in Brentwood Whitehall called Dante's. And they would go in there and they would drink till the end of the night, and then they'd get up and do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. And no one was making any money.
Oh, nobody was making money then. And again, they had jobs in the off season. It was crazy. Yeah.